The dude's beat-up Gran Torino wasn't just a car, it was almost a character itself, with secrets ranging from emergency casting changes to bizarre post-filming resurrections, from the hilarious reason it replaced another vehicle to its explosive final curtain call on a cult TV show. This iconic ride has stories that even hardcore fans don't know. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Big Lebowski's 1973 Ford Gran Torino. Fact 1. John Goodman was too big for the original car. When the Coen brothers first wrote the screenplay for The Big Lebowski, they had a very specific car in mind for Jeffrey "The Dude" Lebowski to drive. The original script called for a Chrysler LeBaron, a smaller convertible that was actually owned by Jeff Dowd, the real-life inspiration for the Dude's character. It seemed like the perfect choice, adding an authentic touch to the film since Dowd himself drove one in real life. But there was just one problem that nobody anticipated during the writing process. John Goodman, who was cast as Walter Sobchak, the Dude's hot-tempered bowling buddy and Vietnam veteran sidekick, simply could not fit comfortably inside the LeBaron. The car was too cramped and too small to accommodate Goodman's large frame, especially for the many scenes where both the Dude and Walter would be sitting together in the front seats, arguing about bowling, nihilism, and various misadventures. This created a legitimate production crisis because so much of the movie's action and dialogue takes place inside the car. The Coen brothers had to quickly scramble to find a replacement vehicle that would be spacious enough for both actors while still feeling right for the Dude's laid-back, somewhat disheveled character. After scouting various options, they settled on the 1973 Ford Gran Torino four-door sedan. The Gran Torino was much more spacious, with a roomy interior that could easily fit Goodman and still maintain the beaten-down, vintage aesthetic the film required. What started as a practical necessity born from Goodman's size turned into one of the most iconic casting decisions in film history. Not for an actor, but for a car that became as memorable as any character in the movie. Fact 2. Torino was almost the Mustang's name. The name of the Dude's car carries a fascinating piece of automotive history that most fans never realize. Torino is the Italian word for Turin, the northern Italian city that's often called the Detroit of Italy because it's home to major automotive manufacturers like Fiat and Alfa Romeo. But before this name ever graced the intermediate Ford model that the Dude drove, it was almost given to one of the most legendary cars in American history. When Ford was developing the Mustang in the early 1960s, company executives went through a lengthy brainstorming process to find the perfect name for their revolutionary new sporty car. Torino was one of several names on the list of serious contenders, alongside other options that would eventually be rejected. The name was meant to evoke European sophistication and automotive heritage, connecting Ford's new American muscle car to the storied tradition of Italian car manufacturing. Ultimately, Ford decided against using Torino for the Mustang, instead choosing the Wild Horse name that would become legendary. But the name didn't disappear from Ford's plans, it just went into storage, waiting for the right vehicle. In 1968, Ford introduced its new intermediate car line and revived the Torino name, initially using it as an upscale trim level for the Fairlane before it became its own model entirely. The Gran Torino designation came in 1972, representing the top-tier luxury version of the line. So when the Dude cruises around Los Angeles in his beat-up Gran Torino, he's unknowingly driving a car with a name that was once considered worthy of the Mustang legacy. A weird twist of automotive history that adds another layer to the car's identity. Fact 3. The vagrant toilet scene is darkly comic. One of the most memorably disgusting moments in The Big Lebowski comes when the Dude finally retrieves his stolen Gran Torino from the police impound lot. As he approaches the recovered vehicle with a police officer, the Dude immediately recoils at the overwhelming stench coming from inside. When he asks about the horrible smell, the cop delivers one of the film's darkest and most casually disturbing lines with complete nonchalance, explaining that it was probably a vagrant who slept in the car, or maybe just used it as a toilet and moved on. It's a perfectly Coen Brothers moment, simultaneously hilarious and revolting, delivered with deadpan matter-of-fact detachment that makes it even more uncomfortable. The cop's casual tone suggests this is just another day in Los Angeles, where stolen cars being used as homeless bathrooms is apparently routine enough that it barely registers as noteworthy. But what many viewers don't realize is that this wasn't just a throwaway line for shock value. The production team actually committed to making the scene as authentically foul as possible. The crew worked to create a genuinely disgusting interior for the Gran Torino, ensuring that the car looked and smelled appropriately terrible for the scene. They added various stains, trash, and other unpleasant details to sell the idea that someone had indeed been living in the vehicle in the worst possible way. Jeff Bridges had to genuinely react to whatever smell or visual grotesqueness they created inside that car, and his horrified expression captures the dude's dismay perfectly. The scene also serves as another indignity heaped upon the already beleaguered Gran Torino, which gets progressively more abused throughout the film until its fiery demise. Fact 4. 2 cars were used, both met. Bad ends. Like many film productions that feature prominent vehicles, The Big Lebowski actually used 2 identical 1973 Ford Gran Torinos during the 11-week shoot in Los Angeles. Having multiple copies of important cars is standard Hollywood practice, allowing filmmakers to continue shooting even if one vehicle gets damaged and giving them backup options for different types of scenes. In this case, both Gran Torinos saw plenty of action throughout the production, getting progressively more beaten up as the dude's misadventures escalated. The cars were already chosen to look somewhat worn and weathered from the start, matching the dude's down-on-his-luck aesthetic, but they endured real damage during filming. One Gran Torino met its scripted fate on camera in one of the movie's most memorable scenes, when the German nihilists take revenge on the dude by setting his beloved car ablaze in the bowling alley parking lot. This wasn't CGI or movie magic. They actually torched a real Gran Torino for that shot, creating the spectacular fireball that lights up the night as the dude and Walter watch helplessly. The burning Gran Torino became symbolic of the dude's final loss in his quest to get his rug replaced and solve the mystery of Bunny Lebowski's disappearance. But the second Gran Torino survived the production intact and went on to have its own strange Hollywood afterlife. Rather than being preserved as a piece of film history, sold to a collector, or placed in a museum like many famous movie cars, this surviving vehicle continued working in the entertainment industry, appearing in other productions. Both cars ultimately met destructive ends, just at different times and in different productions, which seems oddly fitting for a vehicle so associated with chaos and misfortune. Fact 5. The survivor starred in Blue Streak. After the cameras stopped rolling on The Big Lebowski in 1997, most people assumed the surviving Ford Gran Torino would either be retired, sold off, or perhaps preserved as a collector's item given the film's growing cult status. Instead, this weathered 4-door sedan got a second act in Hollywood, proving that even movie cars need to pay the bills. Just 1 year after The Big Lebowski hit theaters, the surviving Gran Torino appeared in Blue Streak, a 1999 action comedy starring Martin Lawrence as Miles Logan, a jewel thief who hides a massive diamond in a building under construction, only to discover when he gets out of prison that the building is now a police station. The movie required various vehicles for background and street scenes throughout its Los Angeles setting, and the production team hired the dude's former ride as one of these working cars. While the Gran Torino didn't play a starring role in Blue Streak the way it did in The Big Lebowski, eagle-eyed fans who know what to look for can spot it in certain scenes, still wearing its faded yellowish paint and battle-scarred exterior. This casting of the car in another production shows how Hollywood operates. Vehicles used in films often get recycled into other projects, moving from one production to another like freelance actors looking for their next gig. The Gran Torino essentially became a working vehicle for hire in the Los Angeles film industry, its connection to The Big Lebowski making it an interesting piece of movie history, even as it continued its mundane work appearing in the background of other people's stories. This brief second chapter proved the car still had some cinematic life left in it before its ultimate fate arrived. Fact 6. Final destruction on The X-Files. The second Gran Torino's Hollywood career came to a definitive and destructive end in 2001, when it made its final on-screen appearance in the long-running science fiction television series The X-Files. After surviving the dude's chaotic adventures and serving in Blue Streak, the weathered Ford was cast in Season 8, Episode 14 of the show, which follows FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully as they investigate paranormal cases and government conspiracies. Unlike its background role in Blue Streak, the Gran Torino's appearance in The X-Files ended spectacularly. The car was actually destroyed during filming of the episode. The specific details of how the car met its end in the episode vary in reports, but what's certain is that the vehicle did not survive the shoot. After dodging its on-screen death by fire in The Big Lebowski, thanks to being the backup car, this Gran Torino finally met a destructive fate anyway, just in service of Mulder and Scully rather than the dude and Walter. There's something poetically fitting about the car's journey. It survived The Big Lebowski only to die in another cult classic production. The X-Files was in its 8th season by this point and had built its own massive following of devoted fans, making the Gran Torino's final moments part of another beloved piece of television history. For movie car enthusiasts and Big Lebowski fans, knowing that the surviving Gran Torino ended up destroyed on The X-Files adds a bittersweet footnote to the vehicle's story. It continued working in Hollywood right up until the end, never retired to a museum or private collection, but instead going out in a blaze of television glory, perhaps exactly how a true working movie car should exit the business. Fact 7. No original cars survive today. Unlike many iconic movie vehicles that become preserved pieces of film history, neither of the two original Ford Gran Torinos from The Big Lebowski exists today in any form. This stands in stark contrast to how Hollywood typically treats famous movie cars, which often end up carefully maintained in private collections, displayed in museums, auctioned for huge sums, or kept by the studios themselves as valuable memorabilia. The first Gran Torino was spectacularly destroyed on camera during the bowling alley parking lot fire scene, burned beyond any hope of restoration or preservation. The second Gran Torino survived the production and went on to work in other films, but as we now know, it met its own destructive end during filming of The X-Files in 2001, meaning both vehicles are permanently gone. For devoted fans of The Big Lebowski who might hope to make a pilgrimage to see the actual car the dude drove, there's simply nowhere to go. You can't find either Gran Torino at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles at Universal Studios, in any private collection, or anywhere else. They're both gone, existing now only in the film itself and in photographs from the production. This makes the dude's Gran Torino fundamentally different from other legendary movie cars, like the DeLorean from Back to the Future, James Bond's Aston Martins, or even the bright red Gran Torino from Starsky and Hutch, all of which have surviving examples that fans can actually see in person. The complete absence of any surviving Big Lebowski Gran Torino adds an unexpected layer of ephemeral quality to the film's legacy. In a way, it's oddly appropriate. The car was always meant to represent something worn down, temporary, and ultimately disposable, just like so many elements of the dude's life. Fact 8. The Credence collection was sacred. One of the most important details about the dude's Gran Torino isn't its make, model, or condition. It's what's inside the tape deck. When filing his police report after the car is stolen, the dude specifically mentions his extensive Creedence Clearwater Revival tape collection, listing it among his most valued possessions alongside the car itself and the mysterious briefcase. This seemingly throwaway detail actually reveals something fundamental about the dude's character and the film's careful attention to musical atmosphere. Throughout the entire movie, every single song that plays while the dude is driving his Gran Torino is by Creedence Clearwater Revival, the legendary rock band from the 1960s and early 70s. We hear Run Through the Jungle during the botched ransom drop when Walter jumps out of the car, and "Looking out my back door" when the dude is driving and accidentally drops a lit joint on himself, causing him to crash into a dumpster. The filmmakers maintained this musical consistency throughout, essentially turning the Gran Torino into a mobile shrine to CCR's music. The choice of Creedence Clearwater Revival is particularly meaningful because the band, despite their southern rock sound and bayou imagery, actually came from Northern California and represented the 1960s counterculture era that shaped the dude's identity. The music connects the dude to his past while also serving as a point of contrast with other characters, most memorably in the scene where the dude is thrown out of a taxi for criticizing the Eagles, showing his strong musical opinions. The Creedence tapes survived the car's theft and vagrant occupation, with the cop noting that the thief left the tape deck and the Creedence behind, suggesting even criminals respected the dude's musical taste. Fact 9. The bowling alley, where it burned down, no longer exists. The iconic bowling alley that served as one of the most important locations in the Big Lebowski, where the dude's Gran Torino met its fiery end in the parking lot, no longer exists in the real world. Hollywood Star Lanes was a 32-lane bowling alley located at 5227 Santa Monica Boulevard in East Hollywood, and it was built in 1962 in the distinctive Googie architectural style. Googie architecture was the futuristic space-age design aesthetic popular in Southern California during the 1950s and 60s, featuring dramatic angles, starbursts, atomic age motifs, and other elements meant to evoke optimism about the future. Hollywood Star Lanes was a perfect example of this style, with its spectacular neon starburst light fixtures and sweeping modern lines. The Coen brothers filmed extensively at the location over 3 weeks of their 11-week production schedule, and the bowling alley's retro aesthetic became inseparable from the film's visual identity. After The Big Lebowski's release, the bowling alley continued operating and actually gained renewed attention from movie fans who wanted to bowl where the dude bowled. However, in 2002, the Los Angeles Unified School District used eminent domain to seize the property for construction of a new elementary school called Kingsley Elementary. The owner initially disputed the forced sale, but a judge eventually ruled in favor of the school district. The bowling alley was closed in August of 2002 after 42 years of operation and was demolished in 2003. The closure was controversial at the time, with many preservationists arguing that the building should have been saved for its architectural and cultural significance, but the demolition proceeded anyway. Today, an elementary school stands where the futuristic bowling alley once welcomed bowlers and filmmakers alike. Fact 10. Greenlight made limited edition die-cast replicas. The Big Lebowski's transition from box office disappointment to beloved cult classic created an unexpected demand for merchandise related to the film, including authentic replicas of the dude's beaten-down Ford Gran Torino. Greenlight Collectibles, a premier manufacturer of die-cast model cars that produces officially licensed replicas in various scales, recognized the potential market among the film's devoted fanbase and secured the licensing rights to create miniature versions of the iconic vehicle. The company produced limited edition die-cast models in 2 different scales, one 43rd scale and one 64th scale, giving collectors options depending on their display preferences and budgets. The larger 1/43rd scale model measures approximately 4.3 inches long and features more detailed elements, while the smaller one, 64th scale version, is roughly 2.5 inches long and fits the standard Hot Wheels size. What makes these replicas particularly special is Greenlight's commitment to accuracy in capturing not just the car's make and model, but its specific weathered appearance from the film. Rather than producing a pristine, showroom-condition Gran Torino, the company deliberately manufactured the models in what they called dirty yellow, replicating the faded, oxidized paint and general beaten-down aesthetic that made the dude's car so memorable. The models feature chrome accents, detailed interiors, rubber tires, and the authentic 4-door sedan body style from the movie. Each piece comes in movie-themed packaging celebrating The Big Lebowski, and the limited edition nature means they're numbered, making them collectible items rather than just toys. Greenlight's president, Russell Hughes, even joked in press releases that they had 4 staff members working on the case and were working in shifts, playfully referencing the film's famous sarcastic police scene, showing how the company embraced the movie's humor while creating these tributes. Fact 11. The color debate, green or yellow? A peculiar inconsistency in The Big Lebowski has sparked ongoing debates among eagle-eyed fans who pay attention to details. When the dude files his police report after his car is stolen, he clearly describes his Ford Gran Torino as green to the officers taking down the information. However, anyone watching the film can plainly see that the actual cars used in production are not green at all. They're a faded, oxidized, yellowish mustard color that's distinctly different from any shade of green. This color discrepancy isn't a minor detail that only the most obsessive fans would notice. It's obvious throughout the film whenever the Gran Torino appears on screen. The question becomes, why does the dude call his obviously yellowish car green? Several theories have emerged among fans trying to explain this mismatch. Some suggest the dude might simply be colorblind, unable to distinguish between certain shades, though nothing else in the film supports this theory. Others point out that the dude is frequently under the influence of various substances, which might affect his perception or memory of what color his own car actually is. Another possibility is that the car's color genuinely changes appearance in different lighting conditions. The yellowish paint might take on greenish tones in certain circumstances, like shade or overcast weather, leading the dude to think of it generally as green. Some fans even theorize that the car might have originally been a more greenish color when the dude first acquired it, but years of sun exposure in Los Angeles faded it to the yellow mustard shade we see in the film, and the dude still thinks of it by its original color. The Coen brothers have never officially explained this discrepancy, leaving it as one of the film's small mysteries that fans continue discussing decades later. Fact 12. The 1972 redesign created that iconic look, the distinctive appearance of the dude's Gran Torino with its extremely long hood, short rear deck, and especially that massive, gaping front grille, came from Ford's controversial 1972 redesign of the entire Torino line. This third-generation redesign was a radical departure from previous models, emphasizing the long hood short deck look that was popular in early 1970s American car design while incorporating dramatic Coke bottle styling along the body. But the most striking and divisive element was the new front end, particularly on Gran Torino models, which featured a huge egg crate-style grille set in an enormous oval opening. Chrome bezels surrounded the headlamps on each side of this cavernous grille, creating a face that was impossible to ignore and sparked strong reactions from automotive critics and consumers alike. Tom McCahill, a legendary automotive journalist known for his colorful writing style, memorably described the gaping grille by saying it looked like it was patterned after Namu the killer whale, referencing the famous orca that had been captured in the Pacific Northwest and placed in the Seattle Marine Aquarium in the 1960s. McCahill's comparison to a whale's mouth perfectly captured the aggressive, almost predatory appearance of the Gran Torino's front end, which seemed ready to swallow the road ahead. Despite his joking criticism of the grille, McCahill also noted that the Torino had a kind of pleasing, no-nonsense styling overall. This controversial design choice by Ford makes the Gran Torino instantly recognizable in The Big Lebowski, and that whale-mouth grille becomes part of the car's character, adding to its slightly absurd, over-the-top presence that somehow perfectly matches the dude's personality and the film's aesthetic of early 1990s Los Angeles. Fact 13. Ford slashed the model line for 1973. The specific year of the dude's Gran Torino, 1973, represents a significant moment in the model's history when Ford made major changes to simplify its intermediate car lineup. Just 1 year after the dramatic 1972 redesign that created the Gran Torino's distinctive whale-mouth grille and long hood look, Ford decided to dramatically reduce the number of Torino and Gran Torino variants available to consumers. In 1971, Ford had offered 14 different models across the Torino line, giving buyers extensive choices in body styles and trim levels. But by 1973, that number had been slashed to just 11 models, representing a nearly 30% reduction in the lineup. The most notable casualty of this consolidation was the convertible version of the Torino, which Ford discontinued entirely for 1973, meaning buyers could no longer get an open-air version of the car. This reduction in options reflected broader changes happening in the American automotive industry during the early 1970s, as manufacturers began dealing with new federal safety regulations, emission standards, and changing consumer preferences that would soon be dramatically affected by the 1973 oil crisis. The Gran Torino four-door sedan that the dude drives was one of the models that survived Ford's cuts, representing the most basic, practical, no-frills version of the car, just a simple four-door sedan without any performance pretensions or luxury upgrades. In a way, this makes it the perfect vehicle for the dude's character. It's stripped down, unpretentious, and purely functional, without any of the flashy elements that characterized muscle car culture. The 1973 Gran Torino sedan wasn't trying to be something it wasn't, which mirrors the dude's own philosophy of just abiding and not putting on airs. Fact 14. The bridge scene used fake wood planks. One of the Big Lebowski's most memorable sequences involves Walter's disastrous plan for the ransom drop, where he brings a briefcase full of his dirty laundry instead of the $1 million, then throws it off a bridge while yelling about taking the hill. The bridge itself looks like a rustic wooden structure spanning a river, giving the scene a vintage, almost rural California feel despite taking place near Los Angeles. However, that weathered wooden bridge that appears on screen wasn't actually wood at all. It was an elaborate production trick. The real location was the Torrey Road Bridge crossing over the Santa Clara River near Piru, California, which is about an hour north of Los Angeles in Ventura County. This bridge was actually paved with standard asphalt tarmac, giving it a modern, ordinary appearance that wouldn't work for the film's aesthetic needs. To create the old-fashioned wooden bridge look that the scene required, the production crew brought in wooden planks and carefully laid them across the entire surface of the asphalt bridge, covering the black pavement with boards that created the illusion of an authentic vintage wooden bridge structure. This type of temporary modification is common in film production when locations need to be altered to match a specific time period or aesthetic, but it requires significant work and planning to pull off convincingly. The crew had to ensure the wooden planks were secure enough for the actors and camera equipment, while also making sure they photographed well on camera. If you visit the Torrey Road Bridge today, you'll find it looks quite different from its appearance in The Big Lebowski. The wooden planks are long gone, and it's returned to being a regular paved bridge. Fact 15. Hollywood star lanes upgraded. Thanks to the film. Before The Big Lebowski arrived to film at Hollywood Star Lanes in early 1997, the 32-lane bowling alley was still using the traditional paper scoring system that had been standard in bowling alleys for decades. When bowlers would come in for their games, they'd have to manually write down their scores on paper scorecards using small pencils, keeping track of their frames, spares, and strikes the old-fashioned way. This antiquated system was becoming increasingly rare by the late 1990s, as most modern bowling alleys had upgraded to electronic scoring monitors that automatically calculated scores and displayed them on overhead screens, making the game easier to follow and eliminating scoring errors. However, installing these electronic systems was expensive, and Hollywood Star Lanes owner, Sam Barnes, had been operating with the paper scorecards for years. The Big Lebowski production spent 3 weeks filming extensively at the location, using both the lanes themselves and the surrounding areas, including the parking lot where the Gran Torino ultimately meets its fiery end. The Coen brothers and their crew essentially took over the facility, and the bowling alley received substantial payment for allowing the disruption to their normal business operations. These profits from the 3-week film shoot finally gave Barnes the financial resources he needed to modernize the facility. After filming wrapped, he used the money to install electronic scoring monitors throughout the bowling alley, bringing Hollywood Star Lanes into the contemporary era of bowling technology. This upgrade, directly funded by the Big Lebowski's production, meant that regular bowlers could finally enjoy the convenience of automatic scoring, making it easier to focus on their game rather than keeping track of numbers on paper. An ironic modernization for a location that would become famous for its retro 1960s googie architecture and its role in a film that often looks backward rather than forward, rather than forward, rather than forward, rather than forward.